This is a Friday Shoes production. Lesson 5-7 in our books on page 279, and our target is I can solve problems using percent equation. The percent equation is an equivalent form of a percent proportion learned earlier, in which the percent is written as a decimal. And we take the part, that is going to be equal to the percent times the whole. These are words that you should know previous to trying this. Now, we have to make sure that our percent, of course, is written as a decimal. Let's do it in an example. I also call it translating. You can translate these directly into a math problem. It says if the part is missing, you're trying to find the part. In this case, we're looking for 6% of 525. It says find 6% of 525. It might say what is 6% of 525 as well. I'd like to throw that at you. Well, let's first do a quick estimate in our head. We know that 1% we can calculate pretty quick. And we got 525, so let's take 500. Let's round it down. So we have 1% of 500 is 5. Just move the decimal over 2. We need 6 of those. That's going to be 30. So the answer should be close to 30. All right, so we have the part equaling the percent times the whole. Now it says the percent is 6%. The whole is 525. You need to find the part. So the P is going to be the part, and that's what we're representing here and looking for. So P, we don't know. We have our equal sign. We have our percent. We write that, 6%, 0.06 times the 525. Simply multiply those two together, and you get 31.5. So the part is 31.5. 31.5 is 6% of 525. All right, you give it a try. It says, what number is 35% of 88? Now remember, we got to find out what the part is, the percent, and the whole. In this case, we're looking for the part. And I like to simply do the translation. So we have what number is 35% of 88. We'll have something representing each one of those. What number is, this is going to be our equal sign, 35%, 0.35, of is multiplication here in math, and then 88. So we literally translate those word for word, number for number. Of course, we multiply the two numbers together, 0.35 times 88, and we get 30.8, 30 and 8 tenths. All right, let's try another one down here. Find 15% of 275. Again, translating the part, the equals, the percent, times, and the whole. Well, we're looking for 15% of 275, so this is a what is 15% of 275. So there's your n equals 0.15 times 275, which is the whole. Multiply the two numbers together, and you get 41.3. In some instances, the percent of the whole, or excuse me, the percent or the whole are unknown. Solve the percent equation for the missing value. So in this case, we're going to show the example of finding the percent when the percent's missing. 420 is what percent of 600? Well, again, let's do a quick estimate. We've got, let's see here, 420 all over 600 to find the percent. That's what we do. We do the part divided by the whole. Estimate that at 400 over 600, which is about 2/3. So that'd be 66 2/3%. It says the part is 420. The whole is 600. You need to find the percent. So n is going to be the percent that we're looking for. So notice how they put the part there, which is 420, equals n, which is the percent, times 600. That equation doesn't change. That's the percent equation. Then, of course, to solve that math problem, you're going to divide by 600 to get n by itself. So the 600s cancel out on the right. You take 420 divided by 600, you get 0.7. Now, that's not written as a percent. That's written as a decimal. So we would take that and write it as 70%. So we would say 420 is 70% of 600. It says, note that the answer, decimal, must be converted to percent. So we got to make sure that we write when we're asking for a percent, we have to convert it to a percent at the end. All right, you give it a try. Come on back, see how you do. 62 is what percent of 186? we have our equation. So let's plug those pieces in. 62 is, which is equals n, which is the percent we don't know, times, which is of, and then 186. Well, let's take and divide by 186 on the right side and the left side. When we take 62 divided by 186, we get 3 repeating. And we move the decimal over 2 spots. That gives us 33.3 repeating percent. So we would say 62 is 33.3 repeating percent of 186. All right, what percent of 750 is 6? Again, oops, our simple translation, we take our n times 750, that equals 6. And then we divide by 750 on both sides. That was the second thing I meant to click there. And then, there it is. And then, of course, we have 0.008. We are looking for the percent, so we have to move it over 2 spots. And we have 0.8%. So we would say 750 is, 0.8% of 750 is 6. That's how we would say it correctly. It's all about getting the pieces in the right place in the formula, and then it's simple from there. All right, how about if we're missing the whole? And these look like this. 65 is 65 is 52% of what number? Well, first let's estimate it. It says 65 is 50% of 130. You just have to double that to get that 50% of 130. So it should be close to 130. All right, quickly we have to say the part is 65. The percent is 52. And it says you need to find the whole. So let W represent the whole. Makes sense. So we have the part equals the percent times the whole. Keep that in the back of your mind. So we have 65 is 0.52. We change the percent to a decimal, and then times W. Now we solve that. Remember, now we divide by whatever is next to our letter. So we divide by 0.52, which is 52%. And of course, the cancellation of the 0.52 on the right side gives you a W, and then on the left, 65 divided by 0.52 on my calculator gives you 125. So we would say 65 is 52% of 125. All right, how about you give it a try? It says 210 is 75% of what number? Again, let's put it into the formula, and that is part equals percent times whole. So we have a part, 210, which is equal to 0.75 decimal of 75% times the thing we're looking for, the whole number. So we divide by 0.75, which is whatever is in front of the n, and we get 280. So we would say 210 is 75% of 280. All right, how about this one? 54 is 18% of what number? Again, building our equation, 54 is 0.18 times the missing whole. Then we would divide both sides by what's in front, 0.18. On the right side, it disappears. On the left side, we get 300. So we would say 54 is 18% of 300. All right, the percent equation. These are the simple concepts here that you kind of look at to get an idea of the 3 different types that you can have. You might be looking for the part, the percent, or the whole, and those are what they look like. All right, let's try that real-world example number 4. Marguerite's parents are buying her a motor scooter. The scooter costs $244. If a 6% sales tax is added, what is the total cost of the scooter? So we want to know what the total cost is. The cost of the scooter plus the sales tax. Well, 2 methods. Method 1 is, and this is what a lot of kids do, they'll take and find the tax amount first. How much tax is that? Well, we take the part times the percent, or excuse me, part is equal to the percent times the whole. Take our 0.06, which is 6%, multiply it by the amount, which is the whole, the cost of, in this case, the motor scooter, $244, and you get $14.64. So that's the tax. Then in the end, they add on the $244 with the $14.64, and that gives you $258.64. I've got a faster way, but you got to know a little bit about your percentages. Take a look at method number 2 here. It says find the total percent first. Instead of finding the amount of the tax, the actual cash value tax, find the total percent you're actually looking for. In this case, you're looking for 100% of the scooter and 6% tax. So you're taking the scooter and the tax and putting it together. That's 106%. So then all you have to do is calculate 106% of 244 to find the total cost. And when you do that, you get 258.64 right away on your calculator. You don't have to add anything on in the end, because you already added in the beginning when you added the percents together. So kind of a different way to think when you calculate your totals. That's how the calculators are programmed. That's how cash registers are programmed. How about you give it a shot here? Come on back, see how you do. It says Zach bought a television that cost $350. Since he lives in Rhode Island, a 7% sales tax was added. What was the total cost of the television? All right, so what do we have? We've got a TV, which we'll call that the 100% value. That's the cost of the TV. And then the tax value, which is 7%. When you put those two together, you take your TV and your tax, put them together, you get 107% of the value that you have to spend. Therefore, when you have that 107%, we have to find 107% of the value of the television, which is $350. So take 107% and multiply it by $350. When we do that, we have to change it to a decimal 1.07 times 350. That gives you $374.50. That adds in the $24.50 of tax already. You don't have to calculate tax, then add it on. So the total cost for the TV is $374.50. Don't forget, you can always rewatch the video or read the examples in the book or look at a couple personal tutor videos on the online textbook. And as usual, this has been a Friday Shoes production.